UFC 305 is this Saturday, which I'm not gonna lie, the main card looks pretty good. I think some of these cards are pretty predictable, but maybe I could be wrong, You know how the sport can be sometimes, but yeah, man, let's get into this main card. Now, the first fight we have on the main card is Li Jingliang versus Carlos Prates. And I'm not gonna lie, this could easily be one of the best fights of the night. It's gonna be a real slugfest if you ask me. We haven't seen Li Jingliang in almost 2 years since his split decision loss to D-Rod. But he's still a dangerous fighter with sharp striking and some powerful hooks, and obviously he has some good kicks too. On the other hand, Prates is coming in with a lot of momentum, and I don't know what they're feeding those guys at Fighting Nerds Gym in Brazil, but they're churning out some serious monsters, especially strikers who are taking the UFC by storm. Carlos Prates is just one of the latest beasts coming out of the factory. The guy's a giant for the weight class, and whatever they're teaching him over there, it's working. Those long limbs that he has are like weapons. Knees, kicks, punches, you name it. He's got knockout power written all over him. And that's the thing that gets me worried for Li Jingliang. He has been in the UFC for over a decade, I believe, but it seems like he's peaked some time ago. While he's known as a striker with a few knockout wins, I believe Prates will pose a tough challenge for him. Prates has a significant reach advantage, and I'm certain his coach will advise him to leverage that to outstrike Li. It appears that the UFC is setting Prates up with a favorable matchup to help this Brazilian prospect build his record. Even though Li is 36, he's not going to go down without a fight, and I think Prates will still come out on top. Li is also returning from a spinal injury, which explains his long absence. It's similar to the injury that Mike Tyson had, the one when he's like spinal. I don't necessarily see him getting knocked out, but I do think he's gonna lose a close fight. Li tends to throw a lot of hooks, and I can see him getting intercepted by Prates' jab for the most of the fight. I don't think Prates will finish him, but I believe he'll win by unanimous decision, which is likely why he is the favorite in this matchup. Up next, we have Tai Tuivasa versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And I'm not gonna lie, Tai Tuivasa's stock has hit an all-time low after losing to Marcin Tarbura on his birthday, despite being the favorite that night. In that fight, Tai Tuivasa showed no improvement in his ground game. He still looks completely out of the element when he's taken down, and it seems like he's not fully committed to his career. He's often out of shape. He hasn't made much progress since joining the UFC. That being said, I think the UFC is throwing him a lifeline here to save his career. And because of that, I'm gonna have to go with Jairzinho Rozenstruik, since he does have a good jab. And this is mainly because I can't rely on Tai anymore. I honestly believe that Jairzinho is just a better kickboxer between the two. This ain't no secret. Jairzinho is a decent heavyweight at best, I would say. And that's the thing. I will see people saying that Tai still has that crazy chin. Well, he had a crazy chin. That thing has been knocked out time after time. And if we know anything about the heavyweight division, all we know is that everyone has power. But I just think that Jairzinho has the skills to outclass Bam Bam. But I will say that he does have a puncher's chance. I mean, after all, it's the heavyweight division. But I'm going to go with Jairzinho in a first round or second round TKO. Up next, we have Matias Gamr versus Dan Hooker. I have Gamr, and I'm not going to lie, this is a huge mismatch. Gamr has been on a roll, but he's been boring to watch. I respect the chain wrestling he does because it's effective and it's cool how he overwhelms his opponents and he keeps winning, but it's not entertaining. I can see why the UFC hasn't given him a title shot yet, but honestly, I think Gamr is just gonna steamroll Dan Hooker. Hooker usually does well against strikers, but it really depends on who he's against if we're being realistic. In this case, it's a bit of a mismatch. Gamr is just a top tier wrestler, and he has decent hands too. I can see him tagging Hooker on the feet and then taking him down whenever he wants. Honestly, I think that's just how the entire fight is just gonna play out. Rinse and repeat. I just don't have much faith in Dan Hooker being able to stop Gamr, especially after we saw what Islam did to Dan, finishing him in one round. I'm not saying Gamr will get it done like that quickly, but I do see Hooker getting outworked and control for all 3 rounds, which could make this fight a pretty boring ass fight. And look, I'm really hoping that I'm wrong. I'm hoping that Hooker somehow catches Gamr with something big, because he's a solid underdog. So if you're feeling lucky and want to place a bet for him, go for it. But I'm not taking that risk. I just don't see Hooker pulling it off. The guy is a warrior, no doubt about it, but this is probably the worst stylistic matchup he could have taken in the top 10. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Gamr to win this however he wants. Up next, we have the co-main event between Kai Kara-France versus Steve Ercik. And you can argue that Steve Ercik should already be holding the UFC flyweight title and defending it in this co-main event. He was clearly getting the better of Pantoja on the feet for the most part in that 5-round fight, but he made the mistake in grappling in the 5th round, which played right into Pantoja's game. Plus, the fight was in Brazil, so Pantoja might have gotten a little help from the judges despite taking more damage than Ercik. Now, Ercik's rise in the UFC has been nothing short of impressive. He almost snagged the title in just 4 fights. He's got some serious striking skills with power that's not typical for someone in the flyweight division. On the other hand, Kai Kara-France is fast, powerful striker with slick footwork, so we're in it for a solid technical striking battle here. He's had a decent run in the UFC, but hasn't quite gotten past the top tier guys, losing to Rivel, Moreno, and Albazi. While France has more experience, I think Ercik's ceiling is higher. I'm picking Steve Ercik in this one. I believe he's shown that he can hang with the best in the division and has what it takes to be a future champion. I expect him to land the heavier shots and come out on top in a close, explosive fight. I just think that Steve Ercik gets it done by a unanimous decision. Up next, we have the main event, which is Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis. And here's the thing. Dricus du Plessis has a unique style, I would say, a unique aggressive fighting style. He's really good at blending striking with his grappling and tends to overwhelm his opponents with non-stop pressure. Sure, he might look a bit awkward at times, but that's the unorthodox approach that he seems to be working for him. So who am I here to judge? There's some debate about whether he really deserves this fight. Since Sean Strickland arguably could have won that fight, it's a close call, and both fighters were pretty beat up by the end of it. Now, Israel Adesanya, on the other hand, is easily one of the most technical, skilled strikers the UFC has ever seen. Before his bout with Alex Pereira, he had a dominant run in the middleweight division, and that's the thing. Adesanya is known for his sharp striking, his strategy, fight IQ, usually uses his reach and his speed to control distance and land accurate shots. Sure, his style might be a bit boring after he wins the title, but that's because he's so good at picking apart his opponents from distance. His loss to Sean Strickland was a huge upset though, and now after a year layoff, he's finally ready to come back. I have to say, this fight is shaping up to be a really close and exciting fight. Adesanya definitely is the more technical striker with the reach advantage, so if he's on point, he should be able to withstand the stand-up exchanges. But DDP is one of those underrated guys who gets overlooked because of his weird style. He's solid in both grappling and striking. The key here will be if DDP can get enough takedowns to really put the hurt on Izzy on the ground. Overall, this one's tough to call, but I'm leaning towards DDP. I think his grappling could be the game changer, and I also believe he can hang with Izzy in the striking department, landing the heavier shots. And I could be wrong, and this pick might come back to haunt me, but I really think DDP is on the rise while Izzy might be on the decline. I think Dricus gets it done in the 3rd round, but I guess we'll find out how that goes. But anyways, guys, what do you guys think of my main card prediction? Did you guys enjoy the video? And if you guys did, please leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like always, guys, I'll see you guys on my next one.